Welcome to today's webinar for RSNA exhibitors, the first of our 2019 series. My name is Sherry Gandell, Manager of Exhibition Services at RSNA, and joining me today is Jefferson Davis with Competitive Edge. Jefferson comes to us with over 30 years of exhibition industry experience, and with his team has evaluated over 24,000 exhibits in action. He is a consultant, trainer, speaker, and author who is intensely results-focused. We have invited him here today to present this special webinar that will take you on a visual journey into booth design. Jefferson will share best practices for what works and what doesn't in 6 key areas, and he will be sharing examples through photos of real live booths from trade show floors. There will be a live Q&A with Jefferson at the end of the presentation, so we encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity by typing your questions in the Q&A section located on your screen. I also want to mention that we are recording today's webinar and will post it to our Exhibitor Best Practices page for anyone who may have missed the live broadcast or if you want to play it back for reference. We will share that web address at the end of the presentation. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jefferson. Welcome, Jefferson.
Thank you, Sherry. And hey, thanks to everybody for coming out here today to spend a little time with us to really talk about, really stand out and take a look at your exhibit and try to figure out, what's working so you can keep doing that and what you might be able to change or improve over the coming weeks here as you get ready for RSNA coming up. As Sherry mentioned, my background is pretty simple. I've been around RSNA for a long time. I've been at the show many times doing exhibit evaluations and been one of the key presenters. And for me, trade shows are about, it's a big investment of human and financial capital, and how do we make it productive and profitable for our companies? And I'm excited that the content that we'll be sharing today is just a very small sampling of what we've been observing now. We're actually pushing close to 27,000 exhibit evaluations, where I have a team of 10 trade show experts, several of which are certified trade show marketers, CTSMs. And, we go to trade shows and we visit booths in action, and we score them on 21 points, looking at the overall exhibit, looking at their product service presentation, looking at their staff. In this program, I was excited that it won the Trade Show Executive Gold 100 Award for the best program to help exhibitors maximize ROI. So here's what I'll say as we get started. Hopefully you've got your workbook, download it. We're going to move fast and furiously. I'm going to really start off in these 6 categories about what doesn't work verbally, and then I'm going to take you on a pictorial journey of what does work. And the challenge for you will be to just really look at these areas, look at these photos, and grab ideas that you think you can adapt and apply. Because if there's anything I've learned now from 30 years in trade shows, it's that sometimes all it takes is one little tweak, one little change to take a exhibit from good to great. And every time I get on American Airlines, they always say, and great's what we're going for. That's what we're going for today here. So let's get rolling. We got a lot to cover quickly. So these 6 areas of exhibit effectiveness, top of the list is attention-grabbing techniques. We as exhibitors sometimes assume that just because we have a space that everybody that walks by notices it. Well, they don't, for a million reasons, which I don't have the time to get into. But job one of an exhibit is force the attendee to look. Make sure they see it. Number 2, as soon as they look at your exhibit, there's going to be a couple questions in their mind. And question number 1 will be, what do you do? Captain Obvious there, make it crystal clear. And equally, and maybe more important, why should I care? What do you do and why should I care? So we're going to look at messaging, making sure that our exhibit is visually communicating. Number 3, it's got to be easy to enter. It's got to be easy to move around. It's got to be easy to find what you're looking for, especially those of you that are in medium and large exhibits that are featuring multiple solutions. And it's got to be easy to exit. So we'll be looking at that. Number 4, please write this down. The number 1 way that attendees want to interact with exhibits is according to Center for Exhibition Industry Research. The the number one way is through interactive presentations and demonstrations. So you got to give careful thought as to how you're staging, showing, telling, immersing attendees into your product or service story. AV. Today, we know that AV is exploding, and it's also coming down in price, which is good. So the ability for exhibitors of all sizes to integrate, relevant, cost-effective AV to add interest, engagement, interactivity, and of course, your booth staff. Having the right number of staff, having them in these larger booths, making sure that it's quickly evident who they are, who the staffers are, that they're proactive and they're responsive to your attendees. So these are the 6 areas we're going to dive into on our here's what's working, here's what's not working, our pictorial journey. So let's get this rolling. Number 1, right out of the gate, I thought it might be good to start with an example of an exhibit that is actually addressing all 6 of these well. And the challenge for me in putting together this workshop was knowing that I have, exhibitors who are small in lines. I have some of you that are in medium, maybe 20 by 20, 30 by 30s, and some of you maybe are in massive exhibits or in 50 by 50 or 80 by 80. But the principles of designing an effective exhibit and experience transcend size, because attendees want the same thing from an exhibit, whether it's a small, medium, or large. So I thought it'd be good to come right out of the gate and give you a picture and some commentary around these 6 things. So number 1, you can see this small booth here. Right out of the gate, job 1, they got to grab attention. And the strategy they're using here is called familiar. People notice what's familiar to them. So they immediately put this guest parking sign right on the perimeter. Now, this is at a show we were at, National Apartment Association, so very point on. Number 2, a bold, clear, well-placed headline that not only talked about the benefit, but communicated what they do. Smart parking for the modern community. No question what they do, right? Number 3, notice the frontage of the booth. It's a small booth. See the table on the back? A lot of small exhibitors will throw that table out on the front and block and leave the attendee in the aisle. Mistake, colossal. There's a psychological shift that happens when an attendee crosses your carpet line. Get them into your space. Number 4, integration of interactive AV. So you can see right here now you've got to come in. It's not up on the carpet line because they're staying in compliance with show regulations too, but they've got an interactive AV experience. Number 5, notice if you're interacting with their AV, their 3 key talking points or benefits are well placed. They're right near the interaction, so they can quickly show you on the AV how it works, reinforcing these 3 benefits. And number 6, they had this is the perfect amount of number staffers for a 10 by 10, which is 2, and they were very proactive, very friendly, very engaging. So if I were to quit the webinar now and say that's how you do a good booth, you would be on your way, but we're not. We got a lot more to go. So let's keep on rolling here. So number 1, attention-grabbing techniques. What doesn't work is boring, uninspired-looking booths, right? It looks like we're just showing up and throwing our stuff up and hoping that somebody wants to stop, right? Dark booths, we see a lot of booths. Maybe the lighting in the hall isn't bright enough. Too much copy, just throwing reams of copy on the back wall. Too many images, 5, 10, 15, 20 pictures. Small copy, not legible. Small pictures, not legible. And any form of visual clutter. The mind rejects clutter. What does work is bringing some creativity. The human brain is wired to notice things that are unusual. It's also wired to notice things that are familiar. Lighting. The phrase I use is people are like bugs. They're attracted to light. The fastest way to get an exhibit noticed is to light it up. Color. Color can play a key role using bold colors that are breaking. A lot of medical shows we do, you'll see a lot of blue and white booths. So sometimes breaking out of that everywhere you look color and flashing in with a very strong color. Imagery. A picture is worth 1,000 words. 1,000 words, right? So relevant imagery, unique shapes and angles and lines, unique materials, motion. These are not the only things that work, but these are some of the big ones. So let's jump into our photos on number one, creativity. And I think this is another example of bringing creativity to an exhibit, similar to my first example. I'm going to give you a complete experience here. So, and by the way, some of these are going to be in the medical industry, healthcare. Some of these are going to be out of the industry. And that's fine, right? Because you're going to get to see it from all angles. So this booth was at the National Restaurant Show. They are essentially a bakery that supplies baked goods to restaurateurs. What they used in their attraction device was this large donut wall. And they had an orange carpet leading right up to it. And these were real donuts, by the way. And you could take one off and, you know, people were coming up taking pictures with it. And so they used that as a visual hook. Then they started doing some really cool stuff around the booth, like play on words and themes. Donuts are one of their services. So Donuts Stop Believing, a play off a song, right? Buns, right? Another thing they do, go above and beyond. So they're tying in some really cool creative messaging along with great visual display. You'll notice too, if you look closer on the image, that they had these vignettes where they creatively displayed the product, and they had these little signs all around the booth that were quick factoids, educational about how this impacts sales at the point of sale. Then on the other side of the donut wall, they really knocked it out of the park. They had an interactive AV experience with a call to action, swipe your way to the loaf of your life. What you did here was there were 3 or 4 questions that came up that essentially were almost like personality type questions. Once you took this quick interaction, the loaf connection, right, it immediately sent an order to the in-booth kitchen. So they had a kitchen in there where they were actually baking, and they custom baked quickly a small loaf of bread just for you. Now, I know this is not in healthcare, right? And that's fine. But what I want you to think about is the creativity, the thoughtfulness, the execution on every stage of the exhibit, from attention grabbing to easy to enter to communication to interactivity. Just blew it out of the park. And by the way, this booth also won Best of Show out of 2,700 exhibits in the show. So creativity. So it's show business. Put on a show. Now, I know some of you, certainly you do medical devices, you're maybe pharmaceutical, you know, you're governed by AdvaMed or the Pharma Code or the Sunshine Act, and you have to stay in compliance with that, of course. But my message is this: shake it up, bring some creativity to it, be the exhibit that when people exit, they walk around the show and go, have you been to the Westin booth? Oh my goodness, you got to go check out that booth. That's what we're going for here, okay? All right, next, people notice what is familiar, or the reticular activator, that part in our brain that, as they say, is in our reptilian brain, is hardwired to notice things that are familiar to us. So here's an example from ophthalmology where they're using the lenses, IOLs they call them, which are the lenses they put in your eye, and they displayed them hanging from the ceiling in almost like a art piece with great lighting. Here's an example from thoracics, lungs, where they used a large scale, almost like an art piece again, of a lung. I was at that show just 2 months ago. I was amazed at how many people would stop and gawk at this, enter in, take a selfie with it, and then engage with the staff. Here's one from radiology. This may be simple, but it's right on point. They're going to notice what? You know, the x-rays, right? Here's another one from ophthalmology with a theater, the eyeball theater. You actually open the door and enter, and there was an experience in the eye. This was a showstopper. And here's another one where they just used fabric. This company does teardrops for your eyes for dry eye. So they used a fabric in the shape of a tear with an interactive experience. Familiar. People notice what's familiar. How can you bring that into your exhibit? Next, people notice what's unusual. So here's an example of using lighting and natural plants, right? Because we get on these show floors and everything gets so like fabric and lights and wood and you know, aluminum and plastic, and to shake up the Etch-a-Sketch here, using a combination of lighting, which is not unusual, but embedding the lighting inside of natural plants as a way to do what? Be unusual. This company does cloud-based services. And by the way, these are not helium balloons, so they're not in violation of a show reg. They are actually anchored from the top of the booth. But not only did they have these multiple size cloud, if you will, in the booth, but the colors changed. And there, at moments, there was a rumble of thunder. Very unusual, super attention grabbing. Next, the way you display your product, right? They took the cutout of a truck, put their product display right in the middle of it. You could walk up in. That's pretty unusual. People walk by, they go, what's going on here? That's what we're going for. And sometimes unusual is just an imagery. You know, for a company that does, speech recognition type EMR type technology, a shark image. So next question for you. What could you do that might be a little unusual that would break the mold and therefore get you a lot of attention? Next, I'm going to blend three things together here: creativity, unusual, and lighting. This first one was an absolute mind blower. This lighting that you see changed colors, and it was suspended, and it came down from the ceiling, and at times it would take shapes. It would look like a a jellyfish or a stingray. And what they were using was creative, unusual lighting, also motion. This was at the American Thoracic Society. Expensive, but I'm telling you, there's not one attendee in the show that did not pass and did not stop and go, oh my goodness, right? And sometimes lighting is just using projection and having it move and change color, like this example. Sometimes the lighting might be embedded into your exhibit backdrop in a unique type, unusual shape. This almost feels like a honeycomb, and they're using some really cool lighting to make this exhibit pop. Sometimes in a small booth, you can see this example where they're using edge lighting on the exhibit properties along with the backdrop of their booth. And sometimes all it takes is just backlighting your backdrop. And now with LED walls coming into play and coming down in price, the ability to have your exhibit backdrop, small, medium, or large, be an LED wall is absolutely changing the game. So here's the question. How are you using lighting now? How could you improve your use of lighting to take your exhibit to the next level? Colors, shapes, materials. Sometimes just covering a booth in an out-of-the-box color. Red, the human brain is wired as a cautionary thing to notice colors. Red, yellow, those are two big ones. We notice those. Caution, stop, right? So maybe it's just washing your booth in color. Maybe it's using a combination like this example of shapes where they've got these circular shapes and this lime green color and lighting, right? Notice the top one is circle, the two exhibit ones, and even the counter are circular. So maybe it's adding some unique shapes, to bring into it. Here's another pretty interesting use of shapes where it's a fabric exhibit. And I talked to these guys on the show floor, and surprisingly, this was a rental booth. So the fabric was all done, and it wasn't very expensive. But notice how they're using angles, sharp angles, company name, their compact, convenient, confident messaging. Stand out from the crowd. Remember, we're in the space of grabbing attention. Sometimes in a smaller booth, it's a combination of the physical materials. Notice this booth has a simulated brick, a stone wall look to it. Turns out it wasn't stone wall at all. It was actually a form of fiberboard, but they also placed a really large LED video wall right in the center. Here's another example, World of Concrete, where the company recreated a small inline booth, which appeared to be cement blocks, which was very familiar to the audience. And yet, when I got up and tapped on them, they were styrofoam. So unique, attention grabbing, out of the box. Here's an example of using a unique shape and a unique color. We were at a show we were just at. The company's called Funnel. So what do you think they're doing here? They've got this unique funnel, which is drawing your eyes right down into their exhibit. So how can you use color, How can you maybe add some unique shapes? How can you experiment with different materials to try to make your exhibit stand out and grab attention? Number two, let's move to messaging. Okay, remember, the best analogy I would give people on an exhibit, especially a small or medium one, is a billboard on a freeway, right? It's got to grab attention, which we just gave you some ideas and examples, and then it's got to quickly communicate. The attendees are flying down the aisles at 70 miles an hour, right? So you can't get long and deep. So what doesn't work? Too much copy, too small, vague messaging, poor placement, too high, too low, blocked by stuff, not answering the what's in it for me question, WIIFM, we call it, the radio station everyone's brain is tuned to, what's in it for me, using platitudes like quality, price, service, which are really overutilized and really don't mean much because, I mean, if you don't have those three things, you're probably not going to stay in business anyway. Getting too technical, using acronyms that people don't understand, and chest puffering, and maybe throwing out claims that are not validated or substantiated. What does work is brief, clear, great placement, understanding viewing tiers, problems, dangling problems, which, by the way, is one of the most powerful interrupters, problems, being crystal clear about a benefit or an opportunity. New is a magnet. Write that down. If you've got something new, it kills us when we go to shows and we talk to exhibitors. They have something new. They're the only one who knows it's new. Number one reason attendees hit the exhibit hall is to see what and who is new. If you got something new, scream it using data, factoids, research, motion, size, and scale. So let's get into some examples here of brevity and clarity, right? Classrooms. Oh, okay, that's the file cabinet. Simple control. I got it, right? We eliminate deposits, right? Totally. That's a pretty strong claim there, right? And it's also, it kind of goes against the grain of the industry, so it's intriguing. People are going to come in, how could you possibly eliminate? That's exactly the question that they want you to ask. This one, I absolutely loved it. They have a siding. Most siding, apparently, this was at the architecture show. Most siding is textured, and they have a very durable siding that's smooth. And notice how they place the big iron, and notice how they're communicating that. Brief, clear, unique, attention grabbing. Sometimes it's just as simple as like this, okay? When I look at this booth, I know three things. I know who they are, I know what they do, and I know what makes their products different. Lightest weight, exceptional quality, right? Remarkable value, right? Sometimes it's carrying it all the way through from your apparel down to your props, to your graphics, to your demonstration presentation. So here's what I want you to stand off from your exhibit and ask yourself. Is it quickly obvious and absolutely evident what you do at a glance? Don't be cute. Don't make them work too hard. In a show like RSNA, a massive show, they're not going to work very hard. The onus is on you to be clear and brief. Next, the placement of your graphics and understanding viewing tiers. So the biggest mistake we see with medium and large booths who rig top tier signs and spend a ton of money to do that is they have a nondescript company name like this one, Avedro. Like if you don't know who they are from their name, you wouldn't know, but they were smart enough to put a second tier right below it. The first and only FDA, whatever those words say, corneal cross-lining, right? So they really took it. The top level sign absolutely needs to communicate two things, who and what. Sometimes you can get why. Here's an example of from another show of where they've answered the who, the what, and given you something to do. Mohawk, flooring, design trends. And they had this rotating cylinder below that showed the latest design trends in flooring. Very effective. This booth is just a clinic on visual storytelling at all levels, from the top, raindrop, right? Near vision inlay. Simple results that'll wow your patients. Tired of the on-off? I mean, there is so much right going on with this booth. The benefit statement, the color blocking, the edge lighting, using factoids and content. Notice the green and the red, the pink where they're using factoids. This booth is an absolute clinic. It's a fabric booth. It looks expensive. You would probably be surprised how little this booth costs to pull off. This one will go down as one of my all-time favorites, just really throwing a value proposition out right there above eye level, clear value prop, build a better coffee bar, right? A benefit, wake up your sales, and reinforcing their brand on the left. And what we really love about a booth like this is the visual storytelling. When you enter into, there's an interactive experience and their education. You can walk through here, walk out in about 90 seconds and know the 3 tenets: make it fast, make it fresh, make it mine. You walk out of there knowing how to improve your coffee bar. Okay, so think about where your graphics are. The top level is who and what. The mid level is what and why. The eye level is why and how. Stand off from your booth, make sure it visually communicates and tells a very quick story. Problems. In business, we're pretty much all in business to solve problems. If you can step back and ask yourself what situations would prompt someone to think about what we do and begin to integrate problem-focused imagery and language into your booth, it'll cut right to the reticular activator of the human brain, which essentially stores problems and is constantly on the look for anything that's related to the problem. The flip side is benefits and opportunities. So here's a great meter board backlit right on the perimeter of the booth that is using a really cool image and a real clear problem. Hey, is poured concrete slowing down your project? The cement turtle slow. Wow, incredible. Here's another one. Another year, same stress, can't figure out your flipping project costs. This company is an absolute master at understanding the pain points of their clients. This is not the only one. They have 4 different vignettes, but an incredible job of dangling a problem. Here's another one. Simple, small booth, clean. Appointment gaps. 2 words. Notice the color they're using to present the gaps. This is in the Chicago Dental Show. If you're a dentist and you're at the show and you had 2 cancellations yesterday, there's no way you're not going to notice this booth, right? Here's another one, small booth, right? You know, we know a lot of medical practitioners use instruments, right? And so one of the benefits they do is you got to pay to have those things sharpened, right? Right there at eye level. Never sharpen again. We'll do it for you free for life. I'm telling you, if you're looking for instruments, you're going to stop at this booth. They've communicated a very strong opportunity that is unique. Here's another top-down example. Work smarter, chart faster. Next text. So they're really answering the who we are, the why, and the what right there. So for you, each of you listening, what are the problems you solve? What are the benefits you create? What are the opportunities you offer? And are they visually screaming off your booth? If they are, people who have those problems, want those benefits, will come running. Take a look at your booth. Make some adjustments. New. I said it earlier. I can't say it better than this. New is a magnet at a trade show. So maybe you're going to have a banner in a small booth using a starburst or a call out. Maybe you're going to integrate it physically into your fabric backdrop. Maybe you're going to have it placed on signage around the booth, and also notice the ask about, which is a very clear call to action. Same thing on the left, have 10 minutes for a demo. Maybe you're going to have it all around your booth with bubbles showing where the new solutions are. Maybe you're going to put it on a flat panel or an LED wall and really take a single new product and make it the feature of your booth. New as a magnet. If you got something new and you're not screaming it from the top of the mountains, you're missing a tremendous opportunity. Next, factoids, data, research. In the medical, the healthcare industry, it's really the backbone, right? So back to the raindrop example. Simple results that'll wow your patients. Look at that, 87.5 2020, 90.4%, right? Plus 5 lines reading with these. That's incredible use of factoids. Here's another large example. I believe this one is from radiology, company that's using a mammogram that detects 41% more invasive, right? Notice how they're using large panels around the booth to scream their factoids out. Here's an example of, using a timeline and color blocking to really show the history and, communicate the clinical research. Here's an example of using a hook factoid research that on average, 1 out of 3 patients are not coming back. Why are 1 out of 3 leaving your practice? So what research, what data, what factoids could you be integrating into your exhibit, your graphics, your AV, your pre-show marketing, your advertising, your everything? This works extremely well at trade shows. Number 3, ease of navigation and exit. Remember we said it's got to be easy to get into, you got to be able to move around, and you got to know how to get out. Okay, so the things that don't work is throwing that table across the booth, blocking it up with properties, or your booth staff. Sometimes your staff is going to be the barrier. Just randomly putting stuff around the booth with not a lot of thought of, the linear usage of things or, what you're featuring and where. No guidance at all. A lot of stuff in the booth. Too much stuff in the booth. Large walls that take a section of your booth out of play. Enclosed spaces. Attendees get nervous about going into a space that they're not sure how long it's going to take and how easy it is to get out of. What does work? Easy to enter, quick and easy to find what you're looking for. Placing your solutions in a natural order or a sequence. Having eye-level directional headers, floor guidance decals, setting up your experience similar to a museum, having open space, comfortable seating. If you want to increase dwell time, have comfortable seating, relax and recharge, and your flooring. As you know, if you've ever stepped into an exhibit that has incredible flooring, that will increase dwell time. So here's an example of a large entry where they've used color carpeted and almost like the rope to pull you right into the exhibit and guide you through the experience. Here's an example of using eye-level directional signages. Notice oils, mass flow, VOC. What is where? I don't have to figure this out. I'm interested in flow. I'm going straight there. Here's a similar example, but using lighting, right, to logically group their solutions by paving, by layout. Here's an example of using color blocking and really cool, unique kiosks. Each solution has its own. You'll see the teal, the burgundy, the blue, all these solutions, and they're naturally grouped, and they're using color blocking and headers. Very easy to find. And here's an example of an instrument company with a circular booth who, rather than just throw in a bunch of instruments out there, grouped them by natural groupings, displayed them on an angle, made it easy to access. Hey, if you're looking for needle holders, you know exactly where to go. You don't have to fish through 250 instruments to find the one or two that you're looking for. Comfortable seating. Maybe it's just recreating a vignette, a cozy space in the booth. Maybe it's having a comfortable chair for people to sit and converse. Hydration. This is an example of a hydration station in the center of a large booth. You'll notice the dispensers. Each one had a different fruit flavor: cucumber, lemon, watermelon, strawberry, right? Increased dwell time. This is from the RSNA. We've noticed a big trend that these relax, recharge, and peer-to-peer areas are getting really, really popular. Look how many people are in that booth, right? And here's an example of, now it's an AV, but what I really want to emphasize here is the comfortable seating, and look where their feet are. Foot massager, AV experience, comfortable chair, seating, relax, recharge, refresh. And also, of course, charging stations with everybody carrying devices today can be another magnet. So how are you using seating? Relax, recharge. If you have space, bring it into it. Okay, next, engaging product or service presentation. What doesn't work is a static display. Just, especially if you have instruments, right, and they're in a case and they can't even touch them, right? So static means nothing to do in the booth. Just throwing a bunch of stuff out there, not having visual support of the application, the feature benefit messaging, too long. The length of a presentation, write this down, 3 to 7 minutes is about the window. TMI, too much information, trying to cram like 13 points into a 4-minute presentation. Speaking over the visitor's head, right, using technical jargon language, and there's no clear takeaways for the visitor. It's not obvious that they're going to walk out of here knowing something. What does work? All of this stuff. And for the sake of time, I'm going to jump in and get into the photos because I'm going to hit most of these for you. Hands-on, minds-on, multi-sensory. Confucius said, I hear and I think, I see and I remember, I do and I know. Try to design your exhibit experience with auditory, visual, and kinesthetic interaction. That'll radically increase the engagement and the recall of the message. So it might be something as just having an interactive experience with real clear graphics telling you exactly what to do in the booth. Step up and start your search now. It might be a prove it type demonstration or presentation that is self-administered or handing the attendee the bottle of water. This one, absolutely love this one. This was at the architecture show. They have a very durable siding, and what they were doing is they had their siding on the right and the competitive brand on the left. The architect was able to come up and lift the two hammers at the same time and drop them, and they would bang on the wall and they would tear through the competitors and they would bounce off theirs. You want to talk about complete sensory immersion, proving your claim in a quick, fun, novel, memorable way? That's what you're going for. Staging, the way you stage your demonstration presentation, and visually supporting your messaging. So you're not just talking at them, right? But they're hearing it, they're seeing it, they're doing it. Here's a great example of staging where they could have just had these rock cutters, just on stands. Instead, they recreated a bunch of rocks and they placed them. This may seem simple, but this is really smart for an instrument. Notice how they angled them and they lit them up, and they made it easy. And they also had headers on what was where. Great example of visual storytelling. Look at this. They've got capital equipment here, the next generation, what it is, some of the benefits of it. This is a clinic right here. GE is always a clinic. I mean, we've evaluated their booths at so many shows, and this is a clinic. What is it? GE gas engine. What's the value prop? Turn your digester into renewable resource. What are the two bullets they want you to take away? Oh, they've got them right there. What do they have? A scale model. What do they have? An interactive video. Outstanding. Here's one I just saw at Architecture about birds, which is promoting a reflective glass. Did you know 1 billion birds a year die slamming into buildings? I didn't. Wow. What a great, you want to talk about a fast education, engagement, storytelling, everything you need to know, protect your birds. There you go. If you have a computer software, notice what they did here. The CyberKnife with their minimize margins and maximize your margins. They had 2 or 3 bullets on the static. They had the interactive AV. So here's my question for all of you. How are you staging your products or services, one, and are you visually supporting those product presentations with takeaway messaging so the visitor hears it, sees it, does it? That's what we're talking about. Gamification. Okay, before I show images, I do want to say that medical shows, healthcare shows like RSNA, these are professional events. So you're going to want to stay away from too carnival-like. And it would be a good idea to submit any form of game that you're going to do before going full tilt, just to make sure that it's in compliance. That being said, look at this, the Total Plant Pursuit Challenge. There are 7 different areas in the booth where you tap the screen, you go to the area, you interact, you learn, you come back. They're trying to see how fast can you go through these 7 challenges. And then when you do, there's something to win. This was a drug where they were using a game, but they executed it so elegantly. These colored lights were the chemicals that caused the drug to work. And they were getting attendees to interact by tossing the balls. And while they were doing that, they were explaining the drug. Very well done. These knowledge challenges, test your knowledge, fast, quick, interactive, using a leaderboard to educate, powerful. And another example of a gamification using Whack-A-Mole, but doing it in a way that is supporting a message, delivering a story. Gamification is super hot. Take the 60-second challenge. How much do you know about this? Extremely powerful. Okay? Recreating physical environments. What's the environment your product's used in, and how would you create that? So here's an example where Valspar has a roofing compound that reduces heat in the attic. They put a heat lamp and a digital timer. They showed their solution versus the two most popular, proving that it reduced time. Here's a spinoff of the one I just showed you, the Total Challenge. This was one of the vignettes, the Healthy Workplace, which was visually using color blocking, messaging, interactivity to educate. And here's an example using the recreation of a lab or an operatory, along with clear value prop and well-placed AV. If you can recreate the environment, great way to present. Next, integration of AV. What doesn't work, the biggest mistake we see on show floors is just putting a flat panel there, a small or medium flat panel with a silent movie, and just thinking that the flat panel is actually going to be your hook and going to engage. It usually doesn't. We've seen exhibitors in the booth spend money on AV to have their website up. Do they really? I mean, is that it at your booth? Why would they need to visit your booth if they can just go to your website? If you are going to use AV, having some form of a title or header, what's showing, right? People don't go to movies that they don't know the title. Silent movies, huge mistake. We see it so often. Just running video, no captions, nothing going on, and poor lighting where you can't see the AV well. Maybe there's downlights on it. Okay, what does work is using your AV on the perimeter as a hook, using it to physically support your presentations, the interactive AV, and bringing leading edge AV into the booth. So let's get into it. This is one of my all-time favorites, small inline booth. They're using rear projection with these eyes. Okay, notice the booth. As you walk near the booth, the eye closes. When it opens, there's a message. I was evaluating this booth. I watched 20 people pass the booth. 20 out of 20 looked at it. Not only were they using it as a hook to grab attention, but it was beginning to start to tell the story. Does she have corneal dystrophy? Here's an example of using almost like a hologram image of a lung and having an interactive touch screens with the different drugs and how they interacted with the lung. And as you pushed one of the drugs on the screen, it would start to talk, and the lung hologram would change in front of your eyes. Augmented reality, the ability, and now a lot of this can even be done on their smartphones with a QR code, the ability to move around your booth and scan things and learn. Okay, this is an example where they were using multiple stations, and once you zeroed in on which of the solutions you wanted, then you could go do a one-to-one deeper dive demo with a technical expert. Virtual reality, Oculus Rift headsets, having people, number one, getting them off their feet, but number two, teleporting them to a place where they go on a visual educational experience about your products. And sometimes something as simple as projection, the talking head like this. The other thing I've seen that we love, which is really inexpensive, are the fans, the LED fans that you have the ability to plug hologram type images and messaging on. So interactive AV experiences. Finally, your booth staff. Too many, too few. Only salespeople. A sea of suits. I look into the booth and it's all black suits. Or on the flip side, it's maybe all shirts. Aggressive, right? Over aggressive. Ignoring visitors, right? Hanging with a gang. They're not asking questions. They're overloading visitors. They're just scanning everybody and anybody that breathes. They're assuming they know what the next step is, and they're not capturing much information. Key, what does work? Make sure you have enough, 50 square feet per staffer, different job functions. Your apparel and or your accessories should identify your staff. They need to be proactive, quickly responsive, ask before you tell, tailor your presentation to the knowledge and needs of the visitor, ask feedback during, collaborate on next step, get information. So make sure you have enough staff. Make sure that you can tell who they are. So this might be an example. Notice the shoes, the branding. This is Colgate, carrying their brand all the way down to their shoes. No question who the booth staffers are. For the executive look, notice what he's doing here. He's got the lapel, the logo on the tie, and the large badge with the company image. Finally, uniforms. Now, again, remember, in RSNA and medical events, these are professional B2B events, so you want your apparel to be, in compliance. You don't want to be too off the edge. in this example where they're wearing the lab coats, very relevant. So make sure you have enough staff and make sure that you know who the staffers are. Woo! We covered a lot here, so let's close this down right now. And my biggest takeaway for each of you is I want you to bring up an image, a rendering, or set up your booth. And I want you to, after this webinar, to look at it before RSNA, and I want you to ask yourself 6 major questions. Does it grab attention? Does it present clear, compelling, informative messaging? Is it easy to enter, navigate, and exit? Is your product or service presentation interactive, and are you supporting it with visual messaging? How are you using technology or audio-visual in your booth? And remember, the price is coming way down. It's getting so much more affordable. And finally, is your booth staff level sufficient? Not too many, not too few. Are they visible? Can you tell who the booth staffers are? Are they proactive, standing, open, smiling, greeting people on the perimeter? And are they quickly responding to visitors? If you will address these 6 factors, you will have a world-class exhibit that will attract and interact with more than enough of the right radiology professionals for you. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. And while I do, I'm going to have Sherry come back for a moment and just share any additional comments or thoughts about anything we've talked about here today. Sherry?
Thanks, Jefferson. That was really, I think, a great presentation, and I'm excited to see a lot of these ideas implemented on the show floor this fall.
Thank you. Yeah, and I am not seeing any questions, so my feeling is that, and we've had a great turnout on this webinar, and it looks like almost everybody's still on. So if you have any questions, fire away right now. You can reach me or Sherry or anybody at RSNA with additional questions. And you know, my closing thought here is that it's not what you heard or what you saw here today that's going to make the difference. It's going to be the thinking you do, and it's going to be the changes that you make. You don't have to change everything. Sometimes 1 or 2 small changes can make all the difference in the world. And I hope this webinar has inspired you and given you guidance and giving you some direction. And while we say that, I do have a question coming in. Do you have any opinions about effective reception areas for mid and large size booths? Yeah, the reception area should be highly visible, should be near the perimeter or a little bit into the booth. So as soon as they come to the booth, they know this is the reception area. You're going to want to make sure that it's staffed. You're going to want to make sure that your staff is clear who the staffers are, and you're going to want to be quickly responsive to visitors. Sometimes, you know, again, staying in compliance with show rules, beverages food attracts. I don't want that to be the primary reason they're at your booth. So make it visible, make it clear, have a sign, you know, welcome area, reception area, have it staffed. Don't put it all the way in the back of your booth. You know, typically you might want that to be the first place they hit, and then from there they move around your booth. So those are some thoughts. Let's see, we're a startup with a small booth. What should be our top priorities? Today, the cost of small booths has come way down. Fabric booths, the ability to have aluminum extrusion and fabric that is backlit, light it up. So my first suggestion would be light it up. Number 2, make sure that your exhibit quickly and visually answers the who we are, what we do, and why you should care. And number 3, something to do in the booth, right? So make sure your exhibit, fabric exhibit, who, what, why, something to do. Any, next question, any opinion on best small giveaways? Yeah, here's my thought on giveaways. Useful, unique, quality. If you have the ability to tie it into a theme or a message, even better. Personalized giveaways are absolute magnets. So, I'll give you an example. We did Chicago Dental Show. We found out that one of the core benefits of our solution was that we cut their consultation time. We doubled their case acceptance rate. So what we used as a giveaway was, prior to the show, we rented the pre-registered attendee mailing list, and we did a mailer that said, give us 5 minutes, we'll show you how to cut your consultation time in half and double your acceptance rate. The theme of the message was, if you can close more of your your recommendations, you make more money, right? And you can spend less time working. Our giveaway was a golf tee. It didn't have any of our branding on it. It had their name on it. We mailed it in a number 10 envelope with a personal CDS invitation for. There was a lump in it. They opened it up. We had a one-page letter with a request for appointment. We mailed to 300 pre-registered dentists. We said, hey, bring this tee by the booth. We have 99 more waiting for you. 178 out of 300 dentists showed up at our booth. Our cost for that giveaway was $6.80 per 100. So we bought those, all 300, and we had them in a little box in the booth in the storage area. When the show was over, we gave them to the local rep for the dentists who didn't come. So giveaways, unique, useful. Quality, ties to a message or a theme. If you can personalize it, the response is amazing. Next question, what's the best way to differentiate from a competitor's booth? Everything I've talked about in this webinar. Figure out what your value proposition is, meaning why at all. Figure out what your unique selling proposition is. So if you're in a situation where you've got a lot of competitors at the show and the market already knows the need for your products or services, then the fastest way to differentiate would be to make your key point of differentiation the biggest, boldest visual message in your booth. Then, of course, do good pre-show marketing, have a quick interactive experience in the booth, and have a well-trained booth staff. And all those factors will make you stand out from the crowd and differentiate from your competition. Any additional questions? And I really appreciate the questions you've sent in. And I would say this, the questions don't have to end here. I've been working with RSNA for several years. If you've got questions about exhibiting, feel free to reach out to me, Jefferson at Trade Show Turnaround. You've got Sherry, and you've got the great team at RSNA, John, Jory, everybody out there to help you. Reach out to them. Reach out to all of us. Last question before I log off. Another one came in. Are there any new AV technologies that stand out? I mentioned the LED fans. They are basically a motor with a fan blade that has LED lighting, and you have the ability to create images, messaging, and holograms that look like they're floating in the air. The cost of those fans can run anywhere from $200 up to $800 or $900. And I've seen companies stack 6 or 8 fans together attached to one back wall and create a mind-blowing visual display that is using color, motion, imagery, and even messaging. So I would encourage you to also go on to exhibitoronline.net, which is Exhibitor Magazine. There's a lot of content up there on technology. So on behalf of Sherry and Jory and John and everybody at RSNA and Jefferson here at Competitive Edge, I've really enjoyed our time together. I hope this has inspired you. I hope it's given you some ideas and direction on how to take what I believe you may already have as a good booth and make it great, make it stand out from the crowd, and so you get everything that you want from trade shows. So thanks for logging in, everybody. This webinar will be recorded and uploaded to the site for replay viewing, and you'll get a quick email survey in a moment. Please give us some feedback on today's webinar. Sherry, any additional thoughts from RSNA?
Well, thanks for taking time to answer all those questions. It was great to hear, specific things that people have questions about. And definitely feel free to reach out to exhibits@rsna.org if you have any questions about an activity you want to do. We definitely will take a look at what you're thinking, review it, and get back to you quickly. We hope you've enjoyed our first webinar for 2019 education program for our exhibitors, and we look forward to having you join us on all of our upcoming topics. And like Jefferson said, you want to give RSNA attendees something to talk about, because basically that's free advertising for you. So in our next webinar on August 14th, we're going to be presenting a dynamic session on how to leverage social media to develop your influencer marketing. So that ties in totally with what Jefferson's been talking about today. So it's going to be a follow-up to our presentation last summer on social media. If you were participating in that, that's with award-winning social media expert Erin Gargan-King of Socialite Agency, and it's being sponsored by Freeman. So watch for an email invitation from me next week. You'll be getting that. And then one final note for today, the exhibitor service kit and exhibitor badge registration are now open and live, so you can find contractors that can help you implement some of the ideas that Jefferson shared today. And you can access both of those through the RSNA 2019 exhibitor portal. So your primary contact will have login credentials, and we'll be emailing those out in case you've misplaced them later today. So watch for that email, and let us know if you have any problems logging in. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.
Right. Thanks, everybody.